Hey, what's up everybody? BDL44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so it is 2 in the morning. I'm up because I do what I often do. Go to sleep a little early and then find myself awake. But this is one of those super hot nights. We're going through this heat wave, even though it's cooler than it was yesterday. It's still probably about 75 degrees in my apartment, 3 a.m. But yeah, that's not important. I came here to actually talk about the Lakers, man. We're talking about the Utah Jazz trade that is potentially out there because um, one of the things that I did not do in regards to this particular scenario was really just look at the numbers on the contracts um, and just head on tackle it as it pertains to my opinion. I've essentially poo-pooed that particular trade to no end, simply because my eyesight has always been 2020 vision on the acquisition of Kyrie Irving. And on this channel, we still believe to this very second that Brooklyn has to make a decision on Kyrie Irving's future that they have yet to make. Right? So that's where we stand. That's all we're singing. But the truth of the matter is, this is a relevant conversation because the Lakers have been engaging with the Utah Jazz in regards to Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, and Bogdanovic, or not Bogdan, Bojan, Bogdanovic, and the idea is to move Russell Westbrook. This may be the most reasonable destination for him to land. The other destination, of course, is the Indiana Pacers, where we've discussed Miles Turner and Buddy Hield potentially coming to the Lakers, but the contractual situation of Miles Turner is not favorable going forward. You're essentially acquiring Miles Turner at his price right now with the intention of negotiating with him, and he wants $20 million a year for multiple years. Now, I don't know what his market looks like, but I do know he will have suitors. So in the event we do acquire him, we expect him to be a 1-year rental at a very expensive price, and that's pretty much something that's a deal breaker for me. So looking at that deal, I'm kind of cool. I would probably want to send him elsewhere if I were to do an indie deal. Just off that reason alone, I actually think he would be a pretty solid fit for the team, of course. Now, looking at the Utah deal, Bogdanovic is at $19 million for 1 year. 1 year, $19 million is super expensive for Bogdanovic, first and foremost. That's not something that you want at all. The second contract is, I believe, Mike Conley's at 2 years, I believe $22 million, I believe it was. And I think Clarkson was at 2 years, and I don't remember, but he has a 2-year deal as well. But yeah, Conley's deal I thought was more expensive than it actually was. Because I said yesterday in a video that I would be willing to play him like $11 million a year. That's exactly what he's making. So that was something that I can update you guys on, and my education on that situation has been updated. The thing about it is, I don't want Mike Conley for 2 years at $11 million. I know I'm nitpicking, but I just don't think he's going to give me $11 million worth of basketball for 2 straight years. I don't think that's a contract that we should be acquiring at all. I think it's going to be more difficult to move than it is going to be to acquire. And the only reason why we're able to get these 3 contracts is because we have an even worse contract to give them. Now, here's the thing, though. I know that there's a lot of luxury tax implications on Russell Westbrook's contract, so this very well may be why this makes sense. But if for not that scenario, I really don't understand why the logic would be best for us to be advantageous for taking back those 3 contracts versus just holding on to Russell Westbrook's contract and letting it expire. Why wouldn't that be the better decision for the Los Angeles Lakers? Based on the question that I have, which is, how much do we expect Bogdanovic, Clarkson, and Conley to contribute to championship success this season and next season? Right? Assuming that Kyrie Irving isn't even an option. You're looking at this deal and you're saying, do you like acquiring those 3 contracts more so than you like having $47 million coming off your books at the end of the season? And the answer would be only if I truly believe those 3 players were the difference between me winning a championship and not. It's the only reason why I would be willing to do that. unless, of course, it saves Genie a ton of money tax-wise for swapping those 3 contracts for Russell's 1. But I don't see how that can be the case, because taking back those 3 contracts equals more salary than Russell Westbrook, and you have it on tab for more years, because of course Clarkson and Conley are on for 2 as opposed to 1. So you would have Bogdanovich coming off the books at 19, but you would still be on the hook for those 2 next season. And so that's a thing. Like, is that something the Lakers desire? I look at those contracts and I say, the fact that they're coming off the books all with by the end of next season is appealing to me. There's nothing on tab past that. Clarkson's a guy you 100% could see yourself wanting to re-sign. His floor is pretty much set in stone. He's exactly who he's going to be, or he's going to give you a little better. Like that's what I expect from him. I don't expect much of a fall off because he's solidified, and it's not a whole lot of wiggle room in his role that the Lakers would give him. So it's not an issue. His floor is very high in my opinion. Mike Conley, you guys, we've talked about this. I'm not a believer at this point, but I respect the mind of Mike Conley, and I respect what he's done, particularly during that grit and grind era. He was a fantastic point guard who earned every bit of the respect that he deserved. I'm happy he made an all-star team in his career. He deserved that too. And he made that very recently, and that's worth noting. But at this point, I just don't like him as my starting point guard. I'm just a different mindset when it comes to that particular player. I like him. I think he's going to be great for the locker room. You know, it's not like oh my God, there's going to be some negative there. No, I'm just looking at the situation. I say, when it really comes down to it, do I think Mike Conley's going to be enough when I need him to be? And the answer is I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Not for 11 mil for 2 years. And Bogdanovich at 19 mil, I don't know that he's going to give you $19 million worth of basketball this season. But what I can tell you is he's definitely going to help you shooting the ball. And he comes off the books. So that would be an acquisition that I think the Los Angeles Lakers wouldn't be bad for having, even though that contract price tag for 1 season isn't what I would want for my team. But I look at this and I say, Danny Ainge would not be looking to acquire Russell Westbrook's contract if it didn't absolutely benefit him to get rid of these 3 contracts at the same time. Okay, because he can get rid of all 3 of these contracts in different ways, or just let Bogdanovich expire himself, no problem. But he wants that Westbrook contract, and it ain't because he wants to re-sign Russell Westbrook. So if it does have those tax implications, that ownership over there in Utah doesn't seem to be too concerned. That tells me, as a Laker fan, that Russell Westbrook's contract is probably best staying on my books instead of bringing in those 3 contracts. Because if Utah doesn't want him, I don't want him either. And I'm pretty sure most people feel that way about Russell Westbrook's contract. And the fit for us is worse than most fits he would probably be going to at this point, based on our roster. So I think the urgency to get rid of him, as we've discussed all off season, is there. But to get rid of him in a smart and responsible way, I think is ultimately what is best for LeBron's tenure, and that's really what we're trying to focus on. It's easy to let it expire and let the season go punt bye-bye, but that's 1 lost season of LeBron James, and how many more of those do we have? How many more of those at this level are we certain we have? I can tell you it's 1.5 to be exact. We're certain we have 1.5 because he signed on for 2, and we know when you sign on for 2, that means if you're in expiring for that particular season, you're at risk to be traded at the deadline. Now, obviously, nobody's logically trading LeBron James, but given the fact that that is the scenario in most situations, it does apply to him without a no-trade clause. So that's what we're certain of. Now, I can tell you, I'm also pretty damn certain the Lakers ain't trading him at the deadline next season. But what I can also tell you is there were certain things I wasn't certain of that took place. So, hey, it's a weird NBA, and we just know that we are only guaranteed what we're certain we can pencil in. So that's pretty much all there is to that. Now, as I look at the Utah Jazz, I understand that Russell Westbrook is a player that they have no interest in using, and we've talked about that a little bit. He was photographed in Utah either it was yesterday or a few days ago, kayaking, and it looks like he's enjoying himself. I don't know if those two things are related, but nevertheless, he was out there, and this is in the air. I personally think that it doesn't really matter that he's doing this, because he's not going to be playing for the Utah Jazz. As we said, I just don't see them running him around for a season on a tank team. Now, they may very well see him as a player who could help them tank, given the fact that he struggled last season, but I just don't think that is a realistic thing. I think if you give Russell Westbrook a team like Utah that's basically a blank canvas, and tell him to go out there and do whatever it is he wants to do, he's going to get right back to what it is that he did in Washington, and that team's going to be pretty good. It's going to be him, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen. If you let Russell Westbrook run down there with those weapons, they're going to win some games. Not a lot, but more than Utah would probably want to. Probably more than 30. And he's going to get a triple-double, and he might even play himself into an all-star. So, with that being said, Utah wants the best opportunity at Victor Wembanyama. They don't want to disgruntle Russell Westbrook, who's unhappy about losing every game on their team. I think it's logical to waive him, buy him out upon acquisition, and let him hit the market right away. That's the only way to play it. You got to acquire it to buy it out, so he can sign with a team that he won't affect what it is that they're doing in a negative way. And unfortunately with Utah, I don't see how that can't be the case when he's going to want to win, and they have no interest in that. So, plus the fact that Colin Sexton is on the team, THT is on the team, it would probably be very wise if they do not acquire Russell Westbrook. Just for the record, we know for a fact that Russell Westbrook and THT don't fit with one another. So that's the end of that. I do think that Russell Westbrook is going to find himself playing basketball somewhere in the NBA this season. I did question that somewhere midway through the offseason, to be honest with you. There was a time where I thought he might actually be all the way out the league at this point if he doesn't land with a team that can use him. But I think I've amended that thought a little bit. I've changed my mind, and the reason why is because we're a little bit removed from last season, and I think people just generally are expecting him to play much better this season in a better situation. I think people expect the Lakers to fit around him better this season, even if he's stuck on the Lakers. So a repeat performance of what we saw last year, I don't think that we're going to see that bad of Russell Westbrook. For one, he's been here for a year, so there's some familiarity. There's some understanding as to what to expect. There is the carryover of some understanding of synergy that he and LeBron James had last year playing the games that they played with one another. So while the chemistry off the court may not necessarily be clear on this channel to how guys feel about each other at this point, but one thing's for certain, they played enough games last year to at least know where each other want to be on the court at this point. So ain't gonna be no learning curve for LeBron James. He knows Russell Westbrook's game, and I think Russell Westbrook knows enough of LeBron James to where they won't get in each other's way the same way that they struggled last season. It just won't be the same way. They've had too many reps together at this point. So the improvement is inevitable. If for not else, LeBron James will know how to manage Russell Westbrook just that much better, based on that time spent together. So, and the presence of bigs. I talk about this a lot, but I just don't think that Russell Westbrook can thrive on a basketball floor where everybody's small. He can't thrive. But when you put traditional bigs on the floor, you give him opportunities to do things that cater to his game a bit better. And I think the Lakers have done a really good job of making sure that he has plenty of big men on the floor with him this season. So, I firmly believe that the Lakers have to look to trade Russell Westbrook, right? I think it's irresponsible to keep him at $47 million for one season for our situation. We're a win-now team. The fit doesn't work. We need that to be represented in other players. I get it. So by that logic, the Utah Jazz trade makes all the sense in the world. And I'm aligned with the thinking. But we got to make sure that the contracts we're bringing back aren't going to make us a worse team and a worse contractual team at that. We can't ruin our books even further by trying to complete this basketball team just because Utah just so happens to have 3 contracts to take our one. That's just not. Look, it's a good reason to do the trade, obviously, but I don't think the trade gets you as good as you're trying to get in order to do what it is you're trying to do. And as I've always said, completion is not as important as making sure we have the pieces to win. You can complete the team, but if you don't complete it to be up to a certain level, you just complete garbage. And so that is what we're going to try to avoid becoming. And I think the best way to do that is to evaluate Utah's talent properly. Mike Conley is worth half of that. Bogdanovich, in my opinion, worth a third of that for one season. Right? Clarkson's pretty solid. But those 2 other contracts, that's not where they're at. That's not where those players are. And that's why Utah's excited to get rid of them. Now, could Mike Conley and Bogdanovich play up their value? I mean, it's possible. But I don't think so. I truly don't think so. When you consider what Mike Conley's role is going to be on this team, how many shots is he actually getting on a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis? He's a floor general, but how many assists is he actually averaging? You know, you have defensive guards that are going to constantly be coming on the floor. How many minutes do you actually have for him? When I look at Mike Conley, I really don't expect him to average more than 8 points a game, maybe 8 points, 3 assists at the most. Is that what we're paying him $11 million for 2 years to do? Within the context of this roster, for that offensive production, that kind of offensive production, just for him to go on the other side and do nothing? No. And be too small to guard people so they're constantly targeting him? No. Absolutely not. Not for $11 million in 2 years. Absolutely not. No. Not for the Lakers. Sorry. And, you know, it's just one of those situations where it's like it makes me sound like a really, really bad guy. You know what I mean? But that's what efficiency sounds like. When you're absolutely certain that something is not for you, you have to just speak that way so it's understood. Like, no, this is why teams get in trouble, because they misevaluate talent and bring in bad contracts. Then you have to rearrange those contracts to get out from under them. This is what Utah is doing. They're trying to get out from under those contracts. Because it wouldn't hurt them to hold those guys, you know what I mean, for their circumstance, versus bringing in Russell Westbrook for $47 million. No. They're trying to get draft capital. That's the key to this. They don't give a damn about giving in those contracts. That's not imperative to their rebuild. It's not. Jordan Clarkson's young enough. You know, there are ways to trade him to get other things. They don't want other things. They want draft capital. So we need to understand that. We need to understand exactly what it is. They want 25 and they want 27. That's the value. They don't care nothing else about nothing else. And we need to understand that those contracts aren't desirable at all. Why? Because we won't be able to trade them for first-round picks, period. Once we try to retrade what it is we acquire, we can't get for it what we gave away. Hell no, don't do it. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Mike Conley ain't going to get you nothing in trade value in that regard. Not with that contract. Clarkson is cool. We love Clarkson. And we think he's going to be solid. But Bogdanovich, 1 year, $19 million. He's going to play a little bit. Going to run around. We're going to lose. He's off the books. You forgot about it. No. Not when I truly believe Kyrie Irving is possible. No. Absolutely not. Now, granted, he is too a player who could also play few games, leave at the end of the season, us not re-sign him. There's risk to all of this. But I just feel like if I'm going to do something, the risk is going to land me an opportunity to be good enough. And that's what it's all about. I know if I wait this out and do exactly what I'm supposed to do, there is a good chance that Brooklyn is going to not want to pay Kyrie Irving his money. And in the event that takes place, I will have the picks in hand and Russell Westbrook's contract to send to Indiana, because I know Brooklyn doesn't want it. And we can get that Indy deal done or the Utah deal done. And for some reason they want Utah's pieces, even though I know for a fact Brooklyn should not want Utah's pieces either, which is why I'm saying Indiana. Utah's stuck with them pieces. They're gonna have to shop them things somewhere else, or they're gonna have to come up off of their demand on the picks. Because I'm telling you right now, that Russell Westbrook, Bogdanovich, Clarkson that deal we're talking about, I'm not giving you 2 picks for that. I'm not doing that. That's another thing that needs to be established. I know they want 2 picks for this deal. I know this deal ain't worth 2 picks. That's what I'm saying to all of you. That's something I should have said in the very first minute of this video. That deal is not worth 2 first-round picks. Absolutely not. Because Russell Westbrook's contract versus those 3 contracts aren't 2 picks vast in difference, if that makes any sense. That's not how far away those 2 packages are from one another in value. In fact, Utah should be giving us a first-round pick for this deal, in my opinion, based on the fact that 2 of those guys are on multiple-year deals, and one of those contracts is ridiculously outpriced in that 1 year. So we're taking on 3 bad contracts in exchange for 1 that's valued less than those 3 combined. How the hell is that worth 2 first-round picks for them? Bad math, my friends. Bad math. Very bad math. That's them making us pay for the bad fit of Russell Westbrook on our team. No, we have that leverage in hand by LeBron James signing that extension. We don't need to pay those 2 picks for that at all. Now, 1 pick for that deal, I wouldn't want to do, but I don't think you can get that deal done without doing a first rounder, because obviously that's the point of what it is they're trying to do. And so again, the answer is no. If I can be so clear as to how I view this trade, it's no on every front. Absolutely not. It's a bad trade. This heavily favors Danny Ainge. It gives him effectively yet 2 more first-round picks to add to his war chest, gets 3 bad contracts off of his books, and ultimately gives him a Hall of Famer that could bounce back and have a fantastic year for him if he decides to play him, or somebody he can very easily waive, absorb the cost, and have $47 million coming off the books the same year he may be acquiring one of the most coveted players ever in Victor Wembanyama. So no, absolutely freaking not do we continue to help parlay Utah Jazz into being the future Golden State Warriors. No, we don't do that. We leave them to their devices, figure out themselves with their own situation with those ugly contracts, and we hold on to Russell Westbrook and our 2 picks for what it is that we truly want. And if we can't get what we truly want, then we still have the 2 picks. Utah's still sitting there. We can do the deal at that time. They ain't trying to win nothing anyway. What's the urgency for them to finish anything? They don't have to finish this deal. They can wait all the way to the final hour of the trade deadline to do this particular deal. And we should. Because what's the urgency to get rid of our 2 picks? None. The urgency is to get rid of Russell Westbrook. And that, to be honest with you, is psychological. It's fully psychological. This is you reacting to his struggles last year and reacting to the media talking about it. Otherwise, he's a Hall of Famer. You should be optimistic he's going to bounce back majorly based on every single other year you've ever seen him play. Let's just be real. And the changes, as I've said, have been made to the team that should ultimately make him a better player. Like, these are the things that you stand on no matter what everybody else is saying. This is the square that you stand on because you know what you have and you know what it is that you do not want. What we do not want is to not be good enough. That's what we don't want. The media will tell you what you don't want is to start the season with Russell Westbrook. But that ain't the full story. Ain't the full story. The full story is we got year 20 of LeBron James to prioritize above everything else in the short term. And because of it, we need to make our next move our best move. And misevaluating those 3 contracts and giving away 2 first-round picks just to make us not good enough is most definitely not prioritizing year 20 of LeBron James properly. So that is what I want to say. This is the 24th minute. Happy Kobe minute. I thank you all for watching BDF 44, and I'm out.